this week. A cyclist is killed by a hit-and-run driver. Plus, a 16-year-old boy is shot and killed. And
this is a job that shouldn't be stigmatized.
Protesters stand against the city's new initiative to target illegal sex workers and street vendors. Right now, Fox 5's Crime in the City. Here are the crimes across the 5 boroughs. For our first story this week, we begin in Lower Manhattan, where the trial begins for Daniel Penny, the Marine veteran accused of placing Jordan Neely in a deadly chokehold on a subway train.
It's a case that shook the city to its core. Today, the manslaughter trial of Daniel Penny begins.
Lisa Evers has been in court all day. She's live in Lower Manhattan with our top story tonight at 5. Lisa.
Well, Steve and Natasha, there are strong signs that this case is moving quickly towards what both sides say they want, a trial. Now, this morning, more than 24 prospective jurors were pre-screened and selected, with more this afternoon. And this comes as both sides say they want to see what happens and whether or not Jordan Neely's tragic death can be proved to be manslaughter. Protesters organized by the Black human rights organization called the December 12th Movement demonstrated their support for Jordan Neely in front of Manhattan Criminal Court. Neely, who was 30 years old, died from a chokehold by 25-year-old Marine veteran Daniel Penny on a city subway. Penny says Neely, who suffered from mental illness and had a high level of K2 in his system, was aggressively threatening him and other passengers, and that he was trying to subdue him until police arrived. Veteran political activist Roger Wareham sees it very differently.
Vigilantes feel that they can become the police solely because of the color of their skin and the color of their victim.
Daniel Penny arrived at criminal court for the first day of jury selection, surrounded by his defense team. He's being tried for second-degree manslaughter. Judge Maxwell Wiley told prospective jurors that just because they have heard of the incident does not disqualify them from serving on the jury. Penny's defense attorneys say much more evidence supporting Penny's actions will be revealed during the trial.
So right now our job is to make sure that we have a fair and impartial jury that can give Danny a fair trial that he deserves.
Every single person watching this trial, every single person paying attention to these proceedings cannot forget that the burden of proof in this and any criminal trial is and remains on the prosecution.
Neely once showed promise as a performer, but had fallen into an abyss of crimes, mental illness, homelessness, and substance abuse in recent years. It was so severe, he was considered by city officials as high risk. But all that matters is what happened on that train, says Neely family attorney Dante Mills.
Someone got on the train and was screaming, and someone choked that person to death. Those things will never balance out, and there's no justification that can make those things balance out.
Now, the judge told the court that he wants to have a candidate pool of about 100 people available who've been pre-screened to move on to the next phase, which will be much more intense questioning. It's called voir dire. That could happen as early as the end of this week.
We now go to Harlem, where a vigil was held for a 4-year-old boy who allegedly died from starvation.
Turning locally now, the horrific death of a 4-year-old boy in Harlem has the community joining together, calling for an end to neglect. Authorities accuse the parents of starving their child to death. Fox 5's Jessica Formoso takes us to the emotional vigil.
The photos of 4-year-old Jameek Maudlin are surrounded by candles and teddy bears outside his home. The little boy died earlier this week, allegedly at the hands of the people who were supposed to protect him, his parents. According to the medical examiner, Jameek was starved to death.
It's sad. It's very sad. Talk to a young child. If she could have just gave the baby to somebody to care for.
Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network holding a prayer service Saturday morning in honor of the little boy.
I don't know what happened, but I know this young boy did not deserve to starve to death.
It was on Monday when police found Jameek unresponsive inside this 6th-floor apartment in Harlem. His mother, 26-year-old Nitavia Ragsdale, and his father, 25-year-old LaRon Maudlin, arrested and charged with manslaughter and endangering the welfare of a child. Sources tell Fox 5 social services had previously visited the home. According to court documents, Jameek only weighed 19 pounds, the chief medical examiner describing the child's condition as chronic. The details of what was going on inside their apartment are shocking and disturbing. In the criminal complaint, it states that the couple lived in the apartment with 4 children, a 7, 6, 5-year-old, and Jameek, who was 4. The mother telling police Jameek had been vomiting up all his food and then eating his vomit. She also told authorities that none of her children have ever been enrolled in school. The 3 other children, also severely malnourished, they were taken to the hospital and are now under the care of ACS.
Somebody saw something and they didn't say nothing.
Stephanie McGraw is the founder and CEO of WARM, which stands for We All Really Matter, a domestic violence organization. She's been helping out the family.
We failed that child, every single last one of it, because it was something that somebody could have said. It was something that somebody could have seen. 2 years and the baby starved of salvation, and we live in the richest country in the world.
Saying his death will not be in vain.
And we're going to talk about a stigma that is still killing us, domestic violence and mental illness, because it was mental illness involved in this baby losing his life.
And Reverend Al Sharpton says the National Action Network will be paying for the boy's funeral.
Over in Astoria, Queens, a woman cyclist was struck and killed in a hit and run by a pickup truck that was fleeing from police.
An investigation underway tonight after a deadly hit and run killed a bicyclist in Queens.
And tonight we have surveillance video that shows the moments before the crash. Fox 5's Duarte Geraldino has the latest.
By 11:30 Tuesday night, police had sealed off the scene of a deadly hit and run at the intersection of 37th Street and 34th Avenue in Queens. A 36-year-old woman was riding her bike when she was hit by a black pickup truck. Surveillance footage shows her riding calmly through the neighborhood, but as she reaches the corner,
and out of nowhere, a speeding truck was going about 60 miles an hour, just hit her out of nowhere. She didn't even scream. I just heard a loud thump, and then like fragments of a bicycle just shattered in like a million pieces.
In the surveillance video, you can also see Jake walking his dog just before the collision. He believes he was the last person the victim saw before she was hit.
She went airborne. She was over in this intersection, flew like 20-something feet and hit that BMW over there, dented it up.
Damage to the front of this BMW hints at the sheer force of the impact. The cyclist was rushed to Elmhurst Hospital where she was pronounced dead.
Terrible. I still am shaking, and everybody else.
Investigators say this all began earlier in the night, around 11 p.m. on Crescent Street. Police tried to pull over a black Dodge Ram that was linked to a burglary. The driver sped off, leading officers on a chase down 34th Avenue. Police say there were 3 men wearing masks inside the truck. After the crash, they bailed, ditching the damaged truck on Newton Road. It was left with obvious signs of the hit and run.
Back in Harlem, a teenage boy was shot and killed in an early morning shooting.
A 16-year-old boy is dead this morning after a shooting in Harlem.
Well, it happened shortly after 1:30 this morning near the intersection of West 124th Street and Lenox Avenue. There are reports that the victim was in a rideshare vehicle when he was shot in the chest. The boy was taken to Harlem Hospital. He was pronounced dead. 2 male suspects were seen running away from the area of the shooting on kick scooters, heading west on 124th Street. Police are looking for them.
We return to Queens, where police are looking for a woman they say bit and punched an Uber driver, then stole his vehicle and fled before crashing it.
An Uber driver in Queens brutally attacked on the job. The suspect eventually able to take off with his vehicle.
The incident has sparked outrage among the taxi drivers union, and as Fox 5's Duarte Geraldino shows us, they're calling on Uber to step in and help.
A woman described as deranged and in need of help is seen in this video opening the door of an Uber driver's vehicle before stealing it. The New York State Federation of Taxi Drivers is calling for action.
A deranged woman attacked one of our members, attacked one of the Uber drivers out in Queens. We understand that she was not the passenger and he was not the intended target, but unfortunately, he was brutally attacked.
Police say this incident happened on October 10th along 86th Avenue in Queens Village. The Uber driver was picking up a passenger around 10 p.m. when the suspect grabbed the hood of his SUV and attacked him.
Police say she punched him several times in the head and the body before biting him on the back, pushing him out the SUV, stealing it, and then crashing it. Fox 5 spoke with the driver, who says he's in good spirits. He shared these pictures of what's left of his Uber. Police say the carjacker crashed into several cars. Look at all that damage in the front before finally crashing into a tree and abandoning the SUV, which is the victim's only source of income.
We are asking Uber as an organization to give this driver a temporary vehicle so that he can continue supporting his family. It's unfortunate that we all understand these drivers are all self-employed, and when something happens to their vehicle, they are out of business.
In a statement, Uber says, what this driver endured is nothing short of terrifying. We've been in touch with him and have reached out to offer support. We've been in contact with police and will continue to do whatever we can to assist their investigation. Police describe the suspect as a woman with a medium complexion, about 5 feet tall, weighing 180 pounds. She was last seen wearing a black sweatshirt and blue jeans.
And finally, we end on Roosevelt Avenue in Corona, Queens, where a new city initiative targeting illegal sex workers and street vendors was met with protests and backlash from community members who argue that their livelihoods are being unfairly targeted.
Well, backlash tonight after a new city initiative targeting illegal sex workers and street vendors in Queens.
All right, some say they need these jobs to be able to afford to live in New York City. Fox 5's Richard Giacobbe live from Roosevelt Ave with more on the back and forth today. Richard.
Steve, Natasha, we're 1 week into this Operation Restore Roosevelt, and there are some tonight who are saying this is harmful policing of innocent people. The NYPD and state troopers have been cracking down on illegal street vendors and sex workers to clean up Roosevelt Avenue. But it's those sex workers and those street vendors who say they have every right to make a living. It was business as usual along Roosevelt Avenue in Corona, Queens. Nothing appearing out of the ordinary, but for the folks who live here, it's anything but.
Now you are scared of everything. The first thing you see is like prostitutes around among Roosevelt Avenue, all those vendors.
But as cops crack down to bring back quality of life, sex work is work. Dozens of those who work this busy thoroughfare say enough is enough.
This is a job that has dignity. This is a job that shouldn't be stigmatized. And people at the end of the day are working, and they deserve the same worker protections as any other type of laborer.
Amalia Valentine is a current sex worker who joined together to support who she calls vulnerable community members, prostitutes who walk up and down Roosevelt Avenue, including immigrants, transgender individuals, and working class people of color.
It very much feels like I'm trying to exist, my community is trying to exist, and simply by existing, we are making people upset and being attacked.
Many people in our community are doing sex work because they need to be able to pay for rent. They need to be able to do this as a form of survival.
The rally in Corona Plaza calls for cops to step aside and abandon the mayor's 90-day plan to overhaul Roosevelt Avenue from 74th to 111th by raiding brothels and arresting those breaking the law.
More resources, no more race.
Democratic District Leader Hiram Montserrat was ambushed by those rallying after he spoke out saying that a police presence is not only necessary along Roosevelt, it's vital to the community's future.
This is an urban crime zone. We have had hundreds upon hundreds of prostitution, brothels, drug sales, drug gangs, and we needed it cleaned up. We appreciate the governor and the mayor hearing the call of the people to make us safe. We need our cops.
But those leading the fight on the other side say this is about their livelihood, and they have every right to be here.
New Yorkers and regular people who live in Queens who are just making a living, working and existing on Roosevelt Ave.
Cops are continuing their crackdown. They busted yet another brothel last night. NYPD community affairs officers have still been on Roosevelt much of today, and the plan is that they'll be here into the new year until they can bring Roosevelt Avenue back to what it was.
That's this week's Crime in the City. Subscribe for more at youtube.com/Fox5NY.